Washington's Commissioner of Public Lands, Hilary Franz, was in Amboy today getting an update on the Big Hollow fire.
It is great to see rain behind us. I'm going to tell you, every day I pray for rain all year round because we need more of it. What we saw starting Labor Day for 72 hours was my worst nightmare. It's the state's worst nightmare. As we saw over 56 fires in the first day of Labor Day, 24 more on the landscape, and 600,000 acres burned in literally 72 hours. That's 5 times the amount of acres that burned in all of 2019. It's more than half of the number of acres that burned in 2015, which was Washington State's worst wildfire year. And tragically, as we know, we lost a life, a young boy's life, which is my worst nightmare, not only to the nightmare of losing one of my firefighters or a civilian. Oftentimes right now we see so much language out there, so much politicization of this issue, and frankly, I'm going to say it day after day, hot air has never ever put a fire out. It only fuels a fire. More than ever, we need people to stop pointing fingers and saying who's to blame and get those fingers to work, helping rebuild a community, helping get our forests healthier, helping our communities become more resilient to these fires that we know are going to be more common on our landscape. We do have the power to be able to reduce these catastrophic fires, not only the size and damage of these fires, but also the frequency, and we have the ability to prevent the destruction of our forests and our landscapes and our communities. We know the moment a fire strikes, we've got to be a national attack. We have to have our air resources and we have to have our ground crews. We have to have incident management teams available and ready to go. The fires that we saw spread in those 72 hours, we weren't able to leverage our air resources. We had hurricane force winds at 50 to 70 miles per hour. It was too dangerous to fly. That meant everything was all hands on deck on the ground side, right? On the landscape resilient, we have got to get at the root of this issue. We can't continue to just be in a place of reacting. We have just in central and eastern Washington 2.7 million acres of forest that are dead and dying, that are literally tinderboxes, that historically when they were healthy might have been a 100-acre fire, but now are a 100,000-acre fire. We have to go in and do the treatment on those forests, remove the dead, dying, diseased trees, removing the smaller diameter, getting that forest back to a state of health and resiliency where they actually have a fighting chance against fire on their own. And now our West Side Forest will be completing the forest health plan for the West Side Forest because we're seeing similar die-off and challenge. That's why we're seeing fires like in the Olympic National Rainforest. One of the things that was most telling to me, when I walk the town of Malden, first of all, the devastation is just shocking. You come into that town, fire station's gone, city hall's gone, post office is gone, and 80 plus homes, which is the bulk of that community, gone, and many of them didn't have insurance. And to see that devastation of an entire town lost in just a few hours is shocking. So we have to have a part of community resilience. We all remember those horrific photos of Paradise, California. And many people think in Washington State, especially with a backdrop of rain and moisture right now, that couldn't happen here. We have over 3 communities in Washington State alone that are in worse wildfire risk than Paradise, California, and many more that are at the same level of risk. It's our job to make sure we're helping those communities take the steps to become more resilient in the face of fire as we do the other work of getting more wildfire resources and restoring the health of our forest lands and our grasslands, which is prevention in the sense that 90% of our fires are caused by humans. Majority of the fires that have happened over the last 10, 11 days are all human caused because we haven't had lightning, right? And so the fourth leg of the stool is helping people get educated to not start fires, right? Because that'll go a long ways. I'm a strong believer that we have got to be proactive. We have got to get on those forests, federal, state, tribal, and private, and start to restore the resiliency of it. Remove the dead, diseased trees, the smaller diameter, get more the spatial gaps between those trees so they aren't competing for soil, moisture, nutrients, right, that will help them be strong and thrive. And again, our forests know how to fight fires. What they don't know is how to fight it when they're all weakened and they're struggling, right? And because they're all weak, they all go up an enormous amount of intense heat that wipes out even the healthiest trees in that group. Remember this, we got to give nature a fighting chance, right? And the problem is 20 to 50 years of fire suppression efforts, right? Coupled with lack of management of those forests in the face of, hotter, drier temperatures, in the face of disease and insect infestation, means that for a significant period here, we're going to need those resources to get on top and contain these fires and protect our communities, right?
We use that confine contain strategy because of the size of this fire, the terrain, the inaccessibility, and the hazards to the firefighter and the public. If we were to do a full suppression fire on this, we would have been looking at over 100,000 acre footprint. By just taking the fire in a couple of spots, we're able to minimize the fire acreage and the growth due to the time of season. We're not going to contain this fire. This is going to be a modified strategy. Like I said earlier, if you wanted to contain this fire, we would have had to burn out that 115,000 acres and do a ton of resource damage, which I don't think would be the appropriate management of this incident. Also, due to the risk factors on a couple of those chunks, there's a reason there's no roads in here. Some really smart people with engineering degrees and stuff couldn't figure out how to get in there safely and do that. Same with some of these other chunks. So why would we put firefighters in there if you can't build roads and you can't log it? There's some reasons. I stood up there with the hotshot crew and literally looked between my toes and could see the bottom of the drainage over 1,000 feet below.